Hello everyone, I welcomes all of you to this lecture. So in last lecture we have seen different types of pressure transducers. We have seen sound transducer. Now we have to start flow transducers. Okay, so what is the use of flow transducer? So these are the devices which are used for sensing the rate of fluid flow. Okay, but while designing flow transducers we have to see which type of a fluid we are using and which type of a pipe or a material is used for flowing the liquid, okay, or a flow. So there are number of techniques which can be used to measure the flow. So some are listed here. So first is voltage developed by liquid moving in a magnetic field. Second is velocity of a sound in a moving fluid. Okay, and third one is optical techniques like ultrasonic flow meters. So out of that we have to see the first one, that is voltage developed by liquid moving in the magnetic field. Okay, so let us see the basic principle behind this. So it depends upon the principle of a Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. So we must know the Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. You may have studied in first year or in physics. So if you see the Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, it states that whenever a conductor moves through a magnetic field of a given field strength, a voltage is induced in the conductor, and that is proportional to the relative velocity between the conductor and a magnetic field. Okay, so this is so simple. When there is a conductor which is placed in a magnetic field, and if that magnetic field is steady and if the conductor is moving, the electrical field is generated, or we can say EMF is generated in a conductor. Okay, so this concept is used in electric generators. Okay, so in case of flow meters, electrically conductive flowing liquids or fluids works as a conductor. Okay, so here we are taking that liquid as a conductor. Okay, let us see what happens inside. Okay, so if you see, this is the general diagram which represents how flow transducer or a flow meter works. Okay, so if you see, it consists of an electrically insulated, or we can say non-conductive pipe. For example, like a fiber glass can be taken. So if you see, this pipe is consider this pipe is a non-conductive. Okay, and to each side, this side and this side, electrodes are placed. Okay, and if you see these magnetic coils, this magnetic coil and this magnetic coil, it is establishing the magnetic fields like this. So these are the magnetic flux lines, and if you see these magnetic flux lines, these magnetic flux lines are perpendicular to the electrodes placed here. And if you see the distance in between these two electrodes, that is given by L. Okay, so this is general diagram. If you see the animated diagram, this diagram will clear the basics behind this construction. Okay, so just like this diagram, this is the animation version of that one. So if you see here, these two electrodes are placed. Okay, and these electrodes are perpendicular to this field, or we can say this field is perpendicular to this electrodes. Okay, so what is the use of these electrodes, that we will see afterwards. Now if you see the liquid, this liquid is flowing like this, and this liquid we are considering as a conductor or moving conductor, and that moving conductor or this moving part is now cutting the magnetic flux. Okay, and due to this we can say that voltage is generated in this, and it will be captured by these electrodes. Okay, so this flowing liquid acts as a conductor. Okay, and the length L is distance in between these two electrodes that I have discussed earlier, and it is generally equal to the pipe's diameter. Okay, and this is, suppose this is non-conducting pipe, then this arrangement you can use directly. But suppose this pipe is metal or conducting, then an electrically insulated linear must be used inside this assembly. Okay, so see, as the liquid passes through this pipe section, it passes through the magnetic field set up by the magnetic coils. Okay, so due to this magnetic coils, the field is set up here. Okay, so what will happen here, the voltage in the liquid that is detected by this electrode, okay, and these electrodes gives the voltage which is generated inside this. Okay, and amplitude of this induced voltage is proportional to the velocity of the liquid. Okay, so let us see that mathematical equation, then you will get to know what happens here. Okay, so induced voltage is given by the equation E is equal to C into B into L into V. Okay, so what is this E? E is nothing but induced voltage in volts, C is dimensional constants, B is magnetic flux density, we can say, which is Weber per square meter, and the L is the length of the conductor in a meter. Okay, or a fluid, we can say. So V is given by E divided by C into B into L. So with this help of this equation, we can see the equation to convert a velocity measurement to volumetric flow rate. Generally we have to consider the volumetric flow rate. Okay, so this velocity must be converted into what? Volumetric flow rate, and that is given by Q is equal to V into A. Okay, so V is a fluid velocity, Q is volumetric flow rate, and A is a cross sectional area of the flow meter. So if you see V, so V is given here, that is fluid velocity, we can say. So by the formula that we have earlier seen, we get V is equal to E divided by CBL, and if you put this in the above equation, we will get volumetric flow rate, that is Q is equal to EA divided by CBL. Okay, but if you see this A is nothing but what is A? Cross sectional area of the flow meter. CBL, if you see this A, CBL, these are the constants. Okay, so that's why I can say that Q is equal to K into E. Okay, so where K is equal to A divided by CBL. Okay, so these parameters I am considering as a constants. So I can say that this volumetric flow rate, that is Q, is directly proportional to what? Voltage, or we can say this voltage, and there is a relation in between this voltage and the electric, what we can say, the voltage that we are getting. Okay, so this E, or induced voltage, which is in volts, it's directly giving you the value of Q, that is a volumetric flow rate. Okay, so with the help of this equation we can obtain this. So I think you got this. Okay, so this is very simple. Just this conductor is cutting the flux inside this pipe, and due to that voltage is generating, and these electrodes are generally, if you see this diagram, these electrodes are generally measuring the induced voltage. Okay, which is due to the Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction principle. Okay, so this is the flow meter that we have seen. Okay, so what is the next? So next is a Hall effect transducer. So again, this is very simple concept. So the Hall effect element is a type of a transducer used for measuring the magnetic field by converting it into an EMF. Okay, the direct measurement of a magnetic field is not possible, thus the Hall effect transducer is used. Okay, so what is the use of this transducer? This transducer converts the magnetic field into electrical quantity. So how it is converting, that we have to see, but before that just see what is a Hall effect. So what is a Hall effect? The principle of the Hall effect is that if the current carrying strip of a conductor is placed in a transverse magnetic field. Okay, see again, if the current carrying conductor or a strip of the conductor is placed in a transverse magnetic field, then what will happen? EMF develops on the edges of the conductor. Okay, so the diagram we will see afterwards, don't worry. And the magnitude of the developed voltage depends on the density of a flux, and this property of a conductor is called as the Hall effect. Okay, so again we will see the principle of Hall effect. So the principle of Hall effect says that if the current carrying strip of a conductor is placed in a magnetic field, then EMF develops on the edge of the conductor. Okay, and the magnitude of the developed voltage depends on the density of a flux, and this property of conductor is called as Hall effect. Okay, so if you see this diagram here, this is the current carrying conductor. The positive voltage is given here, applied here, and negative voltage is applied here, and these are the electrons which are flowing from negative side to the positive side. So we know that the electrons are having negative charges, or electrons are negative charge carriers, so they are attracted towards the positive of a power supply. So that's why the flow will be like this, from negative to positive, and the actual current will be from positive to negative, which is exactly opposite to the electron current. So that maybe that you may have studied in physics or in first year, because this is very basic concepts as far as the electronics engineering concerned. Okay, so here generally the electrons are flowing from negative side to the positive side of a supply, and main current is exactly opposite to the electron current, which is flowing from positive to the negative of a supply. Okay, so this is current carrying conductor, we can say. So what happens when we take this magnet and we moves this magnet towards this current carrying conductor? What will happen here? Due to this magnetic field, there will be a generation of charge carriers. Okay, so these are the positive charge carriers and these are the negative charge carriers. So we can say that these are the electrons and these are the holes. So there is accumulation of holes towards this side, and there is accumulation of electrons towards this side, we can say. Okay, and if you measure, or if you apply the voltmeter here, or multimeter we can say, we will get a deflection here, because generally this will create a negative of a power supply, or a negative of a voltage, we can say, and this will act as a positive of a voltage. So this positive of a multimeter is connected here and negative of multimeter is connected here. Okay, so this is called as Hall effect transducer. When this current carrying strip is placed in magnetic field, what will happen? In between this point 3 and 4, we are getting a voltage. Okay, so this is very simple assembly. This is current carrying conductor or Hall strip, we can say, or current carrying strip, and that is placed in magnetic field. Okay, and when it is placed in magnetic field and current is flowing, then in between this point 3 and 4, we are getting the voltage. Okay, that is given here. When the magnetic field is applied to the strip, the output voltage develops across the leads 3 and 4. Okay, see, suppose we are passing the current through this strip, but we have not placed this strip in magnetic field, then there will not be any voltages that will be generated in point 3 and point 4. But as soon as we place this current carrying strip in a transverse magnetic field, what will happen? Across this point 3 and 4, the voltage will be developed, and that is given by EH. Okay, that is given here, and that voltage or output voltage is given by KHIB divided by T, where KH is a Hall effect coefficient, okay, and T is the thickness of a strip, okay, so which is in meter, and the I is the current in ampere, and B is the flux density in Weber per meter square. Okay, so this voltage is directly proportional to KHIB, or a Hall effect coefficient, current, and we can say this flux density. So if you increase these three parameters, this voltage will increase, but it is inversely proportional to the T, so thickness of a strip. If you decrease the thickness, what will happen? This voltage will increase, and if you increase the thickness, this voltage EH will decrease. Okay, so this is the simple Hall effect transducer. Now you got, I think you got this point. Okay, so where this Hall effect transducer is used, it is used for measurement of a displacement. It can be used for measurement of a current. It is also used for measurement of a power. Okay, so this is all about the Hall effect transducer. Now let us start very interesting topic, that is a digital transducers. So nowadays everything that we are using in our day-to-day life is a digital one. So that's why if you see the most of the applications, they require the digital transducer. Okay, but what is the difference in between this analog transducer and digital transducer? That we have discussed in classification. The analog transducer is giving you analog output, and after that again we require one circuitry which may be analog to digital converter for the conversion of that signal into digital one. because the analog signal cannot be processed directly, we have to convert that digital into digital one. On the other hand, if you see the digital transducer, they are converting the physical change into direct electrical digital signal, which can be directly applied to different processors or controllers, and it can be directly processed. Okay, so that's why the digital transducers are very important and the mostly used in industry or any other applications. Okay, so what is a digital transducer? A transducer which measures physical quantities and converts the information as a coded digital signal rather than as a continuously varying current or voltages, and the reading is represented in the digital form. So it may be in the form of zeros or ones, and these are such transducers we can say are classified as a digital transducer. So the example is shaft encoders. So if you see the digital transducers, these digital transducers are having number of advantages over analog transducers, because if you see the digital transducers, generally they are giving the data in the digital form or in a binary form we can say. So that's why the data transmission, data generation, data storage is again very easy as compared to analog one. As well as if you see digital transducers, there may be a less chances that the noise or a disturbance may be generated in such a cases. Okay, so that's why we are preferring a digital transducers, okay, over the analog transducers. So let us start digital transducer. So the one of the best example is shaft encoders. Okay, so what is an encoder? Encoder is any transducer that generates a coded digital reading of a measurement. Okay, so if you see the shaft encoders, these are the digital transducers used for converting angular position into a digital number. Okay, so let us see what is that. But before studying that one, which techniques can be used for signal generation, that we have to just see. So it may be optical method that we have to see now. It may be sliding contact method, it may be magnetic saturation method, or it may be proximity sensor method. Okay, so let us see optical encoder. So if you see the optical encoder, there are two types of optical encoders are there. So first one is incremental encoder and second one is absolute encoder. Okay, so let us see incremental encoder. So just see this diagram carefully. So if you see the left side, this is the incremental encoder disk, and the right side diagram is an incremental encoder circuit. Okay, so if you see this incremental encoder, it produces a pulse for each increment of a shaft rotation. So generally if you see, this is the disk. Okay, so this disk is represented here and the shaft is attached to here, and due to as this shaft rotates, this disk will rotate. And if you see this disk is having some circular windows we can say. Okay, and these windows or these holes are there, they are just rotating like this as the shaft rotates. Okay, and on left side of this LED is used, light emitting diode, and on right side photo transistor is used. Okay, so during rotation, see here, just during rotation, when the circular window comes across the LED, the light passes through the photo transistor. Okay, means what? Suppose this is the window. Okay, and when such a window comes in line with this LED photo transistor, what will happen? This light will pass through this window and it will be sensed by this photo transistor. Okay, as this is connected to the base of a transistor, what will happen? Photoconductor will conduct or turn on. Okay, and when it turns on, we are getting a zero output. Okay, so why we are getting a zero output, that we have to see here. See, whenever there is no any light, means what? Suppose so the area which is not having any hole. Okay, when comes this area comes in between this LED and this transistor, so this transistor will not sense this light. Okay, so that's why it will be in off condition. So as the transistor is in off condition, what will happen, this VCC will be directly we are getting here as output. Okay, it is considered as a logic 1. Okay, but when this hole comes in line with this LED and this transistor, what will happen, the light will pass through this hole now, and it will be directly sensed by this photo transistor. Okay, and this photo transistor will now conduct or turn on, and whatever the VCC or voltage that is provided by this supply, that will directly pass to the transistor as the transistor is on. So that's why at the output we are not getting anything, because that of VCC is directly passed to the ground. Okay, so this is very simple concept. You may study in future how this transistor works, then you will understand what I am telling now. Okay, so but for the sake of simplicity, just keep in mind that when transistor conducts, output is 0. When transistor is off, or when transistor is non-conducting, or when there is no any light passing through this hole, the transistor is off, and the voltage we are getting is a logic 1 or plus 5 volt. So plus 5 volt stands for logic 1, and logic 0 stands for 0 volt. Okay, so this working principle is utilized here. So as this disc rotates, the train of pulses are generated, and the number of pulses in one rotation is equal to the number of circular windows on the disc. Okay, so therefore we can say that by counting number of pulses, we can decide the shaft position and the number of rotations performed by the shafts. Okay, so this basic principle is used here. This number of pulses for specific time period can give you a speed directly. Okay, so you can set any specific period. We can call it as a 1 second. You can call that period as a 2 second or 5 second. For the specific time period, just count the number of pulses passed by this disc. Okay, and that is giving you the speed of the shaft, we can say. Okay, and it is called as a incremental encoder. Let us see absolute encoder. So if you see the absolute encoders, such arrangement is used here. Okay, so if you see there are different colors are shown here. Okay, so if you see, this is LED array, and on other side there are photo sensors. Okay, so just like this one, this is showing only one LED, and this is also called as photo sensor, we can say photo transistor or a photo sensor, but here we are using 4 LEDs and 4 photo sensors. Okay, so in this case we can say that this black part is not passing a light, and this white part is passing a light, we can say that. Okay, and as per that arrangement, when this disc rotates, as per the position of this we are getting the output. Okay, so the code that we are getting here, that is shown here. Suppose this LED array and photo sensor, this assembly is here, suppose, then we are getting the output as a 0 0 0 0. Okay, when this disc rotates and when this area comes under that, we are getting the 0 0 0 1. Okay, so this black part is considered as a logic 1, we can say, and this white parts are considered as a logic 0. So you can verify anywhere. So if you see here again, it is a 0 0 1 0. Okay, so it is 0 0 1 0. So again, if you consider this as this is a 1 0 0 0. Okay, again it is 1 0 1 1. So this is a whole assembly is 1 1 1 1, we can say, because black color is there. Okay, so generally we are not using the binary numbers here, we are using gray numbers. Okay, because if you see after the 0 0 0 0 it will be 0 0 0 1. Okay, and after this 0 0 0 1 it must be 0 0 1 0. Okay, but we are not using binary code here, we are using gray code. Okay, this is the reason behind this, we will see in next slide. But consider this as if you see if there are 4 tracks, 1 2 3 and 4, so it is having 4-bit resolution, so there are 16 positions, okay, per revolution, because 2 raised to 4 are 16. Okay, if there are 3 tracks, then 2 raised to 3, what is that is 8 position will be there per revolution. Okay, so as you increase the number of bits, revolution will increase and positions will increase, and as positions will increase, you are getting a more accuracy. Okay, so this is the absolute encoder. What I am telling you that if you consider the binary numbers from 0 to 15, total 16 numbers will be there, 0 to 15. So for 0 it is a 0 0 0 0, for 1 it is 0 0 0 1, for 2 it is 0 0 1 0, but here we are taking 0 0 1 1. We are not taking 2 here because we are not taking a binary code here. If it is a binary, then there will be 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, but this binary code is not used here. We have used gray code. The reason behind this we have to see. Okay, so if you see the absolute encoder, it directly generates a coded digital form to represent each discrete angular position. Okay, so this is considered as a one position, this is considered as another position, this is considered as another position, this is considered as another position. So each and every position will be having some unique code, and from that code we can generally calculate the current position of that encoder. Okay, or we can say current position of that shaft. So unlike incremental encoder, no pulse counting is involved, so that's why it is more accurate. In incremental encoder we have to calculate number of pulses. Okay, but if you see this absolute encoder, it directly generates the coded digital form, so which is giving you accurate output. Okay, the disadvantage with binary coding is that many bits can switch in one position. So this point I have discussed now. Okay, so if you consider binary numbers, what will happen? Here I have shown that. Okay, if you see the binary number, what I am telling you that in that tracks we have used the gray codes. So what is the gray codes? In that detail I am not going because you have studied that. So if you see this binary, these binary codes are not used. We have used the gray codes. So why it is like that I am telling you, because if you see this bits, binary bits are changing the position. For example, from this 0 0 0 0 it is changed to 0 0 0 1. Okay, so only one bit is changed here, that is okay. But if you see the transition from 1 to 2, this 1 is changed to 0 and this 0 is changed to 1, means at a time 2 bits are changed. Okay, and due to this there may be a generation of errors. Okay, so this can lead to errors if pickup elements are not properly aligned, or if the codes are not properly printed, and bit switching may not happen simultaneously. Okay, so consider transition from 0 0 1 1 to 0 1 0 0. If the third bit switches first, we will have 0 0 0 1, which indicates a rotation in the other direction. Okay, means what? Here I want to tell you that this gray code is changing its single bit, one bit only. Okay, not multiple bits like this one. Okay, again if you see here, this one is changing from if there is a transition from 5 to 6, this one is changing to 0, this 0 is changing to 1, so 2 bits are changing here. Okay, again if you see here, this one is changing to 0, this 0 is changing to 1. In a single transition 2 bits are changing, but if you take any gray code, there is only one bit change. If you compare any two codes, for example this and this one, only one bit is changed here. If you see this code and this code, only one bit one bit is changed here. So if you consider this code and this code, only one bit changed here, this one is become to 0. If you consider these two codes, only one bit is changed here from 0 to 1. Okay, so this gray code is changing one bit at a time only, so that's why we are using gray codes. And binary numbers are changing multiple bits in one transition, so that's why it may lead to errors. That is the conclusion of the whole discussion that we have discussed now. Okay, so applications, the applications are robotic manipulators, machine tools, data storage systems, plotters, then it is used in printers and other rotating machinery. So what are the advantages? High resolution, high accuracy, noise immunity, and it is having a low cost. So these are the some advantages. So let us see optical sensors. So what is the use of these optical sensors? So optical sensors converts light into an electrical output signal. Okay, so the types are photoemissive transducer and semiconductor photoelectric transducer. So let us see photoemissive transducer. So what is a photoemissive transducer? The electrons are emitted in certain devices when they are exposed to the light. Such elements are called as a photoemissive transducers. Okay, or they can be used in a photoemissive transducers. So electrons are emitted in a certain devices when they are exposed to the light. If the photons of the light with sufficient energy incident on the surface of the some material, electron breaks their atomic bond and emitted, and this is called as a photoemissive effect. So if you see the example of this photoemissive transducer, that is a cesium antimony. Okay, so types are a vacuum phototube, gas filled phototube, and a photomultiplier tube. So let us see vacuum tube first. Okay, so again I am repeating the property of this photoemissive element. If the photons of the light with a sufficient energy incident on the surface of that photoemissive material, what will happen? Electrons break their atomic bond and emitted. So this is called as a photoemissive or emissive effect. So if you see the vacuum tube or a vacuum phototube, if you see this, there is one cathode, okay, and there is one wire anode, we can say, and the voltage is supplied like this. Okay, so if you see this, the cathode is coated with a photoemissive material. So whatever the photoemissive material will be there, that will be coated on this cathode. Okay, and it is housed or placed in a glass material or a glass tube along with other electrode, which is anode. Okay, so vacuum exists in this glass tube. There is vacuum in this tube, and the voltage is created between the photocathode and anode. The voltage will be created in this one. Okay, and you know that anode is having a positive and cathode is having a negative voltage level. Okay, so what happens when light beam or light is focused on this cathode? What will happen when the light strikes the surface of this photocathode? The photons of this light energy supply the sufficient energy to the electrons. Okay, and then these electrons are then emitted from the photocathode and collected by this anode. Okay, so you all know that electrons are having a negative charge carriers. Okay, and these electrons are attracted towards the anode, which is a positive. But when they are attracted towards this one, they may have some energy, and that energy is provided by this photobeam or photons. Okay, and if the light if the electrons are emitted, they will be collected by this anode. Okay, and the light intensity is more, what will happen? Large number of electrons are emitted, and the amount of the current flowing through the circuit will be proportional to the light beams. Okay, so as the electrons moves through the circuit or wires, the current will flow, that we know, and that electron movement is dependent upon what? The electron beam, and as the number of electrons are moving towards the anode, the current will increase, and this is measured here with the help of DC amplifier and readout. Okay, so this is the simple vacuum tube. So again I am repeating this. This is cathode, which is coated with photoemissive material. When the light is focused on this cathode, which is having photoemissive material, what will happen here? The electrons are attracted towards the anode, which is positive, and due to this, electron movement will be there, and as there is electron movement, current will be there, and that is directly proportional to the photons beam or light energy, we can say. Okay, so this is the simple vacuum tube or vacuum phototube. Okay, so the next point, that is photomultiplier tube, that we will discuss in the next lecture. So till today this is sufficient, we will stop here. So remaining points we will discuss in the next lecture. Thank you very much.